After the Civil War and Reconstruction, abolitionists began to fight for universal suffrage, meaning the right for all people to vote, regardless of race or gender. The women's suffrage movement specifically aimed to give women the right to vote. Frederick Douglass, a powerful abolitionist and speaker, supported women's suffrage, but to fully understand his support, we must also recognize the influential women who helped shape his views and the suffrage movement. As the saying goes, behind every powerful man, there's a powerful woman, and also that iron sharpens iron. One of the most important women Douglass encountered was Sojourner Truth. Born a slave in 1797, she was one of the first black women to stand up for both abolition and women's rights. Originally named Isabella Bumfree, she later became Sojourner Truth after a spiritual awakening at age 43. Truth was known for speaking plainly and powerfully about injustice. Though Douglass admired her speaking skills, he initially found her uncultured. However, at an 1852 meeting in Ohio, Truth challenged Douglass after he spoke about taking freedom by force. When Douglass finished, Truth asked, "Is God gone?" reminding him of the spiritual nature of the struggle for freedom. Anna Murray Douglass, Frederick's first wife, was an important figure in his life and the suffrage movement. She was an early advocate for women's rights and an abolitionist. She cared for their 5 children and supported Frederick's public career, often managing things at home while he traveled. Anna's strong belief in equality deeply influenced Frederick's support for women's suffrage. They were married for 44 years. Harriet Tubman, another key figure, was born a slave and became an abolitionist and activist. After escaping slavery, Tubman made 13 trips to rescue enslaved people through the Underground Railroad. Douglass and Tubman worked closely together, sharing letters with ideas, strategies, and updates on important events. They collaborated with other leaders like Susan B. Anthony to push for both women's rights and the abolition of slavery. Douglass attended the historic Women's Rights Convention in Seneca Falls in 1848, where he met Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. This helped unite the causes of black rights and women's suffrage. In 1866, they formed the American Equal Rights Association, which Douglass joined as one of its 3 vice presidents. Though they worked together, Douglass didn't always agree with other suffragists. For example, Sojourner Truth split with Douglass over the issue of priorities. Douglass believed that suffrage for formerly enslaved black men should come before women's suffrage. Truth, however, argued that both men and women should have the right to vote at the same time. This debate focused on the 14th and 15th Amendments, which granted citizenship and voting rights for black men, but did not include women. Douglass felt the priority should be on black men's suffrage, but never abandoned the longer-term goal of women's suffrage. Despite disagreements and criticisms, Douglass continued to publicly support women's rights to vote. One of the most famous speeches, "I am a radical woman suffrage man," was delivered in 1888 in front of Susan B. Anthony. On the final day of his life, Douglass participated in a women's rights meeting in Washington, D.C. with Susan B. Anthony. At his funeral, Anthony gave a eulogy and read a tribute from Elizabeth Cady Stanton, calling Douglass a woman's rights man. In 1920, after many decades of struggle, the 19th Amendment was ratified, granting women the right to vote. Although the amendment was first introduced in 1878, it took more than 40 years before it was finally passed. Today, no American citizen can be denied the right to vote based on their gender.